So good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much for joining us for our first webinar with regards to career transition secrets. This webinar is part of our launch of a webinar series targeting our alumni, but it is open to our wider COSTAATT community, meaning our students, as well as our staff, as well as our faculty, so that all can benefit from this knowledge that is being shared. This first one, it is an hour-long webinar, and we do have other webinars planned. The next webinar that is planned will be taking place on the 23rd of May, and it's dubbed Resume Revolution. And so we invite you to join us for that event as well, if you have not registered as yet for that event. And the idea behind the Alumni Webinar Series is that we are providing our alumni with the opportunity to upskill in terms of their career skills generally, not necessarily in terms of their technical areas, but in terms of their knowledge, in terms of how to remain competitive on the job market. Today, we have three amazing speakers who have a relationship to COSTAATT in varying ways. The first speaker that we have is Deborah Ramsoobhag, and she will be talking about her journey from being a marketing maven to being a cake artisan. Now, Deborah has been an accomplished professional with a career dealing with marketing campaigns, managing high-profile events, excelling in trade, marketing, and sales. And throughout her distinguished career, she has led teams in both Arthur Lockjack Global School of Business, Unilever Caribbean, Pepsi Americas, National Petroleum Company, and her strategic acumen and creative flair have consistently distinguished her within the competitive industry. Despite this, beneath her marketing prowess, there lay a profound passion for baking, which ultimately led to her significant career transition. So she embraced her culinary creativity, and Deborah now dedicates her talents to crafting exquisite and delectable cakes through her business, The Cupcake Haven. And so we recognize and we welcome Deborah. Our next speaker for today is Arkkim Noellien. Now, Arkkim brings a unique and interesting perspective to our conversation on career pivots. He's a certified optician with over a decade of experience in the optical field. His professional journey has expanded beyond the clinical care into a dynamic world of business and strategy. He has been awarded the Spirit of COSTAATT Award in 2013, and then he has returned to complete his BBA in Management and Entrepreneurship. He is a final year student at COSTAATT at present, and his commitment to growth has earned him an MBA scholarship from Formato Educativo Business School in collaboration with University of Gasteiz in Spain. So he brings his real-world understanding into the projects that he's dealing with currently now as a strategy intern with Aventa, which is the pharmaceutical arm of the Agostini group. So please join me in welcoming Arkkim Noellien. And our third speaker for today is Michelle Romany-Roper. Michelle Romany-Roper hails from the hills of Maraval, particularly Paramin. She comes from a family that has a strong farming background, and she started work within the medical industry, particularly working at medical diagnostics, where she worked for a number of years. After retirement, she has retrained and reskilled and upskilled in order to embrace a second career, which is in the area of tour guiding. Now, Michelle was trained and certified as a tour guide at COSTAATT, and she is here to talk about her experience moving into this new industry from into hospitality as a tour guide, particularly within the House of Angostura. All right. And so to kick things off, I'm going to ask Deborah to do a presentation to talk a little bit about her journey and to explain some of her tips and secrets in terms of embracing that career transition.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. So I have a small presentation, and Fiola, because of my technical challenges, sometimes I'll ask you to end when I'm finished. Thanks. Can everyone see?
No, we're not able to see us yet.
Okay, 1 second. Yes?
Yes, we're able to see.
Okay, great. So let's begin. One sunny afternoon, Alice was in her garden, listening to her sister read. Once or twice, she peeped into the book, but there were no pictures or conversations in it. What's the use of a book, thought Alice, without pictures or conversation? Alice soon fell asleep, but woke up sometime later upon hearing noise. She looked around for her sister, but found herself alone. Suddenly, a white rabbit with pink eyes ran by her. He was dressed in a blue suit and was carrying a large pocket watch. He kept saying to himself, oh dear, I shall be too late. I wonder why he's in such a hurry, thought Alice. She jumped up when she saw the rabbit take the watch out of his waistcoat pocket. Out of curiosity, she followed him out of the garden into the woods, but she realized just then that she had never seen a rabbit wearing a waistcoat, nor had she seen a rabbit carrying a pocket watch. She followed him until he disappeared down a hole near a big tree. And before she could stop herself, she found too that she had entered the rabbit hole. When I think about my journey in, from where I was to where I am now, I think about it as entering into that rabbit hole that Alice did, into a world of exploration. So I'm just going to give you a snapshot of this is who I was, and this is who I became. How do we go from this into this? What people don't see, and maybe the people who have worked with me before or who have been a part of the teams that I've been a part of, they would have also seen this, which is part of the corporate world, even though it may not look that way. So here's the background of my journey. When I didn't come from a very rich background, but we had sufficient. But when I turned 18 and I had just finished my A-levels, somewhere in your school life, people tell you there is a great job out there waiting for you. For my parents, it didn't include spending money and doing nothing at home. So I needed to get money to go online. Like any Trinidadian, it's that age, your friends going out, you want to go everywhere, you need to get pocket money. You need to get to all the secret and high profile events because you want to be with the in crowd. So I bought myself a Wilton cake book and I started to make cakes. I made simple cakes at home that I'd sell slices. I would do cakes for aunts, for nephews, for nieces, for everyone who wanted a cake and was willing to pay, even if it was just a little bit. As long as it was more than the cost, I was getting money towards my liming. Fast forward, life comes at you fast. And I had my first child at the age of 22, and I was thrown into the world of work. I started off as an administrative assistant for a senior engineer at CTC Electronics. And then from there, I discovered things that I had before in my career as a cake maker at home. I realized I was good at sales. And sales is partnered with marketing. So the jobs that I transitioned into at Pepsi America, at NP, all included marketing, whether it was on-shelf marketing or selling directly to customers. Sales were going, but you also had to market your product. You had to believe in your product for this to happen. Now, luckily for me, with that creativity and that liking towards marketing, I was hired by one of the best marketing companies in the world, Unilever. And in there, it was like a dream come true. Everything that you dreamt of at school now became a reality and more. I mean, this company was fantastic. Not to mention, I was surrounded by a lot of people who were creative and intelligent women who had accomplished so much in their lives. And thankfully, today I call a lot of them my friends because we've bonded. And they really showed me what potential was. The great thing about Unilever was that they also had a budget and they allowed creativity. So here I was doing the day-to-day work, whether it was merchandising and putting out products or making sure that the products were on shelf, planning the planograms for my merchandising team, or doing branding. But then there was something called training that we needed to do. And they said, here's a budget, be creative with it. And so we got to do all these fun events. We embraced the movie 300. We did Alice in Wonderland. We did all these different themes that were current, which appealed to the merchandising team that I had, and was training them with creativity. And what I found myself leaning more into is the creative part of my job. While I liked the other part and I was happy that I was accomplished and I was being recognized in my job, I didn't get to embrace that creativity as much as I used to because the Unilever structure had changed. They had started handing us packages where you had to follow their guidelines and you weren't allowed to explore anymore. This, along with some personal needs to spend more time with my family, propelled me into a change where I needed to find something else. And there was this great opportunity at the COSTAATT Alumni Global School of Business, and it was to be their conferencing manager. What did that mean? That meant I get to put on all these events, these big events, using my creativity. And while doing that, I also got the opportunity to embrace the ability to learn, which is something I just love to do. I love ideas and I love theory. And so, you know, things that I would do, just read a book. That was actually my job. I got to read a book and I actually got to meet these authors. I've met people like Malcolm Gladwell, Daniel Pink, Marcus Buckingham, really forward thinkers who, I don't know what motivated them, but the fact is the way that they view the world was inspirational to me. Now, just by chance, I'll tell you a story of how I got into the cake making. So while this is happening, I've built up my friend group over the years. I'm older now, and a lot of my friends come over to my house. I go to their house, and I'm always baking something and carrying it for them. One day, my friend who was the HR director at Arthur Lockjack came to me and she said to me, Debs, I'm in a real pickle. I need to get some cupcakes by tomorrow for Mother's Day. And I said, what? She's like, I know you're busy. I know you're busy. And I wouldn't ask unless I had to. Can you please, please, please help me out? I'll pay you. Just anything, anything. And I'm like, oh my God, okay. It's just because it's you. Because it's you, I will do it. But, you know, it's not my thing. I can't imagine. What if people don't like my stuff? I mean, you guys are my friends, right? You all will eat the stuff I make and say, and you know, it's great. But to my surprise, when I did that, and I wouldn't say they were the prettiest cupcakes. They were nice cupcakes, but they weren't the prettiest. If I compare what I do now compared to what I did then, but it was amazing. People suddenly liked these cupcakes, and what I had was people coming up to me and saying, Debs, I have this happening next week. Can you bake something for me? Can you bake something for me? And suddenly these cupcakes turned into cakes and turned into events, and people wanted me to do pies and cookies and everything. And then it became a conflict of interest because I had this demanding job that I loved. I truly loved my job, where I wanted to continue along this path, but then there was this part of me that was calling, and I wanted to explore what that was. And so I made the decision to walk away from Arthur Lockjack and dive into the Cupcake Haven. My next slide will talk about the things that I really needed to understand before I made that journey. But thankfully, over the past 14 years, it's been that long. I know it doesn't seem that long if people who know think about it. We've been able to grow. And as you would have seen some of the work that we would have done before. If you'd like to explore more, you can always visit our page. So what aspects motivated me? So when I sat there looking at the two things, I had the opportunity to really sit and think, and I realized I had to find the common thread, the things that was similar about everything I did, because moving from job to job to job was not going to fulfill me. Why is it now that I'm being pulled in another direction? So I looked at the thread of all the things that I had done over the years, and I realized I like the challenges where I could be creative. Those things I came alive in, and based on the feedback I got, I excelled at those things. I enjoyed learning new things. I enjoyed tasks that gave me the ability to have human connections. So, for example, when I was at Unilever, I led a merchandising team of 102 merchandisers. And if you know the background of some of these merchandisers, it's not that they have a lot of access financially. And so they lived for those moments where they could do something that they would never be able to do. So instead of spending a training budget once every month for them to do something in an office, I decided to do it quarterly and expand the training budget so that they could come out of the mundane. And what I found was that they were motivated to perform even better because they got that day off and they looked forward to that and they built relationships with each other. So I enjoy things that gave me a human connection. And I felt accomplished when I did something positive that could inspire others. You know, if I could lie down in the night and at the end of the day feel that I have contributed something positively to society, it makes me feel fulfilled. And I got that exact feeling from doing cakes because suddenly you realize you're not just baking a cake and becoming part of someone's celebration. I'm part of that baptism. I'm part of the wedding. Over the years, through my cake business, I've made hundreds of human connections. I have clients who've called me. I've been there when this couple was engaged. I've done their wedding cake. I've done their daughter's first cake. You know, there's a couple from Lockjack I know, and I remember that love story. And I've seen that person, the girl she went through a divorce and finding love again and being part of that love story with them. I wasn't even close to them before, but through doing cakes, I found out that. I've taught clients through divorces, people who I know who are married and now they're separated, and husband and wife, they call us separately for the cake. So usually that time, we know now, okay, we have to do 2 cakes for Ethan because Ethan needs one for his mom and one for his dad. So I cater that time within. But it's amazing through doing cakes, the human connection you have. You feel like you grew up with all these people. It's gotten so much that when we deliver cake, sometimes people pack food for us, or they say, come in and have a drink with us. Come and stay a little bit with the lime. I mean, we can't always, but you know, that's one of the intrinsic rewards of being a cake maker. So those things motivated me into knowing that I had to move into that direction. And that's something that you have to learn, because if you don't know where you're going, and it doesn't matter which road that you're taking. So if you are contemplating moving in a direction, you need to know what it is that you have to do. So I have some key questions that I thought about that you can ask yourself, right? And these are questions maybe people asked you when you were younger, but right now in this moment, you can make a change, right? So the first thing is, think about it. If you could do anything as a career, what would that thing be? What would that thing be? And is that thing possible? Then you have to find the common thread, as I found the common thread in my journey. What really motivates you? At the end of the day, is there something that motivates you every day? And what is the core of that center? And, you know, there's nature and nurture. What motivates you should come from your nature, because at the end of the day, you are who you are. Despite everything that surrounds you, you have to know at the core of it who you are as a person. Are there any recognizable patterns in your talents? You know, what's the real cost behind making the change? Because I didn't really explore that, but just to give you a little bit about that. The real cost is time. I had to give up an industry where I had built myself, I had built a reputation, and based on the trajectory, I would have gone up and up. So I had to walk away from that. Walking away from that meant that all those years of experience, I don't know what it would be like if I chose to dive back into that, if I would be open and welcome. I couldn't flip-flop. I had to make a determination, right? The other thing was financially. There were things that I had to do, and thankfully, I'm married to someone who has supported me over the years, and he said, don't worry about it. If you really want to do this, you know, I'll take care of it in the meantime, you know. And there were days when we started off that it wasn't easy, but I had someone financially to help me in terms of creating that safety net. And then finally, when things get tough, do you still want to do that if things get tough? And I'll give you a cake story. I'm sure you all have read horror cake stories online. I mean, everybody remembers the cheese ball incident with that young lady, right? When she put cheese balls on the cake for basketballs. But I'll tell you my story. I had done this cake. It was a Paw Patrol cake for those of you who have young children. It was a 3-tier cake. It was gorgeous, 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 gorgeous. I dropped it off for the person. The event was on the Saturday. And we carried the cake for her. She looked at the cake. We told her how to take care of the cake, everything. And she took this cake. She took it to a community center and she left it out all day Saturday. Then she brought it home and she left it out. She never refrigerated the cake. I mean, these are homemade cakes, so there's no preservatives in it. And calls me on the Thursday after the event, 1 week, to tell me the cake is spoiled and she wants back her money. I had just started my business. I had spent all my time and I could argue with this person that, hey, if you didn't take your cake, it's not my problem. But I had a really good friend. I still have, not had. She's still one of my dearest friends. And she said to me, you know, Debs, it comes down to this. Is your business big enough now to stand up to that ridicule online? Because people want to hear what's negative. They don't want to hear the positive. They don't want to hear your style. They're waiting out there to tear down people. So my advice to you is to take the bite, give her back her money, and block her, never do a cake for her again. And so I thought about that and I said, yeah, we are baby. I can't do it. So I had to take that loss. And that was how many years ago? The cake was over $1,500. I gave her back her money. And she got the cake, you know, she got the cake. She ate most of the cake. I was complaining about 1 tier being spoiled, but she was just so aggressive that I thought the best thing to do was to give her back her money and end it, right? And then out of that, we built a system where we now have a sign-off form that has all the care instructions. So when we hand over the cake to someone, they sign off for receiving it in good condition. And then at the back of the form, it's all the care instructions. And so the fact that you've signed it, we said, make sure and read the care instructions. So anything happens, we're not responsible after we've handed over the cake to you. And so in those moments, when I was going through that moment, you know, because again, I had just started my business, I needed that fund and it was tough. And I wanted to lie there and I wanted to cry and I wanted to quit. And I said, okay, this isn't for me. But somehow you have to know if you're going to navigate through that. And that's just one story. There are lots of different stories, but that is the toughest one where you've done everything right. And just because of someone else, you now have to figure out how to navigate that system. So out of all that, I've gathered a few things that I can give you as a roadmap. I'm sure the other presenters will have some additional things to add to it. And so let me go through those for you. The first thing is you need to have an internal support structure. My internal support structure consisted of my friends, my family. Like I said, I have really, really amazing people surrounding me, mentors, people who I can call up anytime up to this day and say, hey, I need some advice on this. And people who I'm pretty sure if I said, hey, I want to go back to work, they would give me advice on that too. And that's the kind of support that you need. People who tell you, there have been times that I've gone to one particular friend and I said, I want to quit. And she said, are you crazy? This is your God-given talent. You're just having a moment. Calm down, you know? Then if you do decide that you have that structure and you want to go into it and you do decide to drink me, I don't know if you remember with Alice, right? Alice, she ate the cake that's at Eat Me and she got really small. In order to get bigger, she had to drink a bottle where she would get taller to get the key and then eat the cake to get back smaller. So you have to decide if you're going to go with that up and down. So if you decide to jump into your industry, then you need to volunteer. Find the industry that you want to go into and volunteer to be part of it. Attend training sessions on it, whether it's online or in person, that particular field you want to go into, do that. Do research in the industry. See what the best practices are and what are the pitfalls and see how people navigated through those moments. As I mentioned before, you need to look at your financial cost. If you can afford it, what kind of costs you would need to get into the industry and then what kind of safety net you need, whether it's a 3-month safety net, 6 months, 2 years, depending on the industry that you choose to go into. make meaningful connections with people in those industries. So attend events where you would meet like-minded people and make connections with them, so that when something comes up, maybe they need assistance, maybe they have a job that they can't do and they recommend you to do it. Let people know what you want to do. Talk about it. I mean, don't go annoying your where you're working now if you're planning to change and telling them not doing their work and talking about what you would like to do. You have to do the people work too, right? But I mean, when there's moments when you can share with people, because the opportunity will come along. And once those opportunities come, you need to take them, even though it might be difficult. It might mean burning the midnight oil, not sleeping well, putting in the extra into it, going somewhere, spending money sometimes just to build your name. But you need to embrace the opportunities. And the last thing is perseverance. Regardless of what happens, the ups and downs, you have to be able to persevere in these situations, because it's not always easy. Up to now, how many years our calendar is always full. I'm always booked out. I'm always trying to squeeze in people. We have bookings into next year for weddings, and it's just amazing, right? So I could kind of relax, but I don't, because there's still people calling. There are moments that I have ups and downs. Just last week I had a down, and it wasn't, I was just beating up on myself about something. But thank God I had a support system around me who could be open and honest with me and give me advice in terms of how I still look for advice in terms of how to navigate while I know things. Because you know what, in life, if you really want to succeed at anything, you never stop learning. Everyone you meet, you have a conversation with. Every experience, there's something to learn out of that. Even if the learning is that you never want to be there again, there is a learning to be had. And that's it, guys. Thanks so much.
Thank you very much, Deborah, for that insightful presentation. I think that we've all learned a little bit of something there, so we appreciate it greatly. I'd now like to roll directly into Arkkim Noellien to give a brief understanding of his journey and his decision to change, and any secrets and insights that he would have to share.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for your time. And one of the things that you said, Deborah, that really resonated with me was the idea of doing something that allows you to connect with people, and that really stays with me, because I think I'm a similar individual. So I have just about 10 minutes to speak to you. We're going to talk about the secrets of career transition. So let's jump right in. Like it or not, we're all climbing a ladder. No matter who you are, whatever the situation, whatever the circumstance, your age, race, gender, class, we're all climbing a ladder. Peter might be closer to the top of the ladder. Michael might be just trying to get the courage to make his first step and to begin his own journey. And Miss Mavis, God bless her soul, she might be on the other side of the building climbing down the ladder. But we're all climbing up a ladder. Now imagine for a second that you get off the ladder at the top, only to realize that your ladder is leaning against the wrong building, or your ladder is leaning against the wrong industry, or your ladder is leaning against the wrong career. Sounds frustrating, right? Sounds crazy, but it happens to many of us. And I'm going to share some of my experience about what I did when I was on top of that building, only to realize that I was leaning up against the wrong building. So about 10 years deep into my career as an optician, I knew the industry. I had the trust of my peers, the people who I competed against. I knew them, they knew me well. I was very comfortable. I was able to get a lot of things done. I invested a lot of energy, a lot of time, a lot of money and resources into it. I became internationally certified, and that in itself was an experience. And yes, I was able to pay my bills, you know, and I'm thankful for that. I'm thankful for everything that I learned in that industry. But in spite of that, and I think one of the reasons that you heard me say 10 years, so it means I spent some time. One of the reasons was exactly what Deborah said, the enjoyment of interacting with humans, interacting with people. But nonetheless, I still felt like, is this it? You know, is there more to this experience, I worked really hard, but I don't feel like this is the epitome of what I had worked for. Nonetheless, I stayed in the industry for probably another 2 or 3 years after that, until life happened. Not in the form of an opportunity or a promotion or a, open door, but in the form of loss. And yeah, I had to walk through that door as well. So my mother was the closest person to my, one of the closest persons I had to my heart. She was my biggest cheerleader. She was that person who would have been in your corner no matter what. If you fell, if you failed, she's the person to say, hey, don't worry. Get up, don't worry. We got you. I got you. We're going to get through this. And yeah. So on the 28th of October, 2020, I got a phone call from a doctor in Philadelphia because my mom lived in the States. And time stopped after I got that phone call because he basically guided me that she had recently been diagnosed with lymphoma cancer, stage 5. So it was right in the middle of the pandemic. Borders were locked down. Everything was just, yeah. And through miraculous intervention, 2 days later, I found myself at her bedside. And this is where I would have stayed for the next 3 weeks. In those moments of what I would call impossible pain, I discovered incredible strength. After all the noise settled, I was left with myself. I sat with myself for 6 months because that's how long it took for me to be able to get back into Trinidad because the borders were locked. But it was definitely needed. No distractions, just the truth. Just being able to see where I am and how I was faring in terms of the journey that I had intended for myself, and it wasn't lining up. I felt in myself that I was nowhere nearer to where I wanted to be than maybe 10 years ago. And this is when I really started asking myself those hard questions. I realized that I couldn't live on autopilot. I couldn't afford to just go with the flow. I had to stop reacting to life and start designing it. I decided that I was going to take my life and take accountability for my life, take accountability for my decisions, and essentially taking my metaphorical ladder from off the building and deciding where I'm going to put it with intention and on my terms. So if you're at a crossroads, if you have faced a similar situation, you're not sure what to do, you're probably 2 years into deciding if this is it for you or if there's more to it, this is what really helped me. Right? 1, get to know yourself. Take time to actually get to know yourself. Ask yourself those deep, probing questions. Who are you? What are you doing with as a good friend of mine says, the dash that you're living? What are you doing with it? Where do you want to be? Where do you want to go? When you compare where you are now with what you know you have the potential to do, things start looking very different. 2, pursue knowledge relentlessly. I think this is one of the things that Deborah was speaking about when she said, don't just jump ship, make sure you analyze the cost of transitioning. So research, read books, seek out mentors. Most of my mentors don't even know they're my mentors. Some of them aren't even alive, but what it takes to have that relationship is being able to observe that that person has something for you and being able to receive from that person, whether it's a lesson, whether it's information, whether it's, a strategy of how to get to where you want to go. So yeah, pursue knowledge relentlessly. Number 3, choose your vehicle. If you leave your house and you want to go to Port of Spain, you need a transport. You need a form of transportation. So for me in my journey, education was a vehicle for me. It allowed me to bridge certain gaps that I probably would not have been able to with connections or with other mediums. And this is actually where I kind of got in touch with COSTAATT. And I think they played a big part in my life in terms of getting me on that vehicle, getting me on that train, and really providing me with the avenue to progress and to succeed. So my background was science and physics and math, and I really never thought to myself that business counts, entrepreneurship. I couldn't imagine pursuing those courses. Nonetheless, when the rubber met the road and I picked up the phone and I called and I said, this is where I'm at, I was able to speak to one of the chairs in the departments, and she really took her time and she went through it with me. And she said, you know what, you sounding like somebody we could work with. You have the drive and you have the passion and you're willing to take the risk. We will work with you. And this is how I started the BBA in management at COSTAATT. 4, own your journey. Spoke a little about it earlier. No one is responsible for where you are more than you yourself. If you don't make good decisions, you can't expect to have good results. So when you get to that point in your life where you no longer hold anybody accountable for your own decisions, where you no longer hold anybody accountable for your future, not your mother, not your boss, not your teacher, not even your salary. A lot of people say, I'm not where I am because if I had a bigger salary, yeah, I would do so much things, and you have a brain, you have a mind, you have to be creative. And there are ways to figure out how to get to where you want to get to. And so, yeah, so you need to take ownership. You need to be able to say, I'm going to make it. And I know I'm going to make it, not because somebody's in my life, but because I'm going to make sure that I make it. Yeah. And 5, this one is a big one for me. I call it occupy bold spaces. In other words, you see that job application or that job opening that you see, and on pen and paper, you're not really qualified for it. Take a chance. Take a chance to give yourself an opportunity to get an opportunity. Put yourself in spaces that everything inside of you tells you, nah, you don't have what it takes to get there. You don't have what it takes to stay there. Put yourself in those spaces. Rub against those shoulders where, you in your mind, they're on another level, but you might be exactly what they're looking for, whether it is to connect with, whether it is for an opportunity or project that they're working on. And I would say this, sorry. Yeah. And I would say this, that this is one of the things that I had to challenge myself to do. Even in the position that I'm in now, I'm a strategy intern in a pharmaceutical company. I work alongside some of the executives, some of the leadership and the influencers in the organization. And do you think that I check all the boxes? Definitely not. But I think I remember actually putting on my application, I don't have everything that it would take, but what I do possess is a drive and a set of skills and experiences that I've gained from life that I believe will definitely generate value within your organization. And thankfully, somebody saw it and they took an action on it. Another thing is, as she identified, I was successful in getting a scholarship to pursue my MBA. I remember looking at the application, the opportunity was there, and I struggled because I thought to myself, I didn't have everything. I didn't finish the BBA in management. I didn't, and I'm like, how do I expect to get this thing? And on the last day, because I know I needed it, I know I wanted it, I know I wanted it bad. And the last day I said, you know what? I don't care. It might be funny, it might be a laugh, and you know what? I'm going to apply. I know I'm going to be rejected, but I'm going to apply. And it might be crazy, but how amazing would it be if I got a response saying that I actually got through? And I got through. So don't rob yourself of that opportunity. Don't be your worst enemy by not giving yourself an opportunity, by not trying. So in conclusion, if you don't take anything else from my story, let it be this. You don't need permission to grow. You don't need validation to evolve. And you certainly don't need to wait on a crisis to begin again. So to each of you listening, thank you. You could have been anywhere right now. I don't know if anybody in KFC, is lunchtime. But you could have been anywhere right now, but you are choosing to invest in you. Whatever the ladder you're climbing, make sure you're leaning against the wall that you truly believe in. And if you find out that that's not the wall, be brave enough to climb down and begin again. You're not alone, and you're not starting from scratch. You're starting from experience. Thank you.
Wow, Arkkim, that was a very inspirational presentation. We appreciate it greatly. So many nuggets of wisdom that you would have given us that I've written down. Stop reacting to life and start designing it. Own your journey. Pursue knowledge relentlessly. And I'm really glad that you chose to come to COSTAATT in order to retrain and to evolve into, what is your next part of your journey. At COSTAATT, we really try to open doors to new pathways, offering not just a second chance, but bold new beginnings for our students. So thank you very much for allowing COSTAATT to be a part of your journey. All right. And now I'd like to move on to our third presenter, who is another COSTAATT graduate. And this would be Michelle Romany Roper, who will talk about her journey from healthcare to hospitality and the job that she's doing now as a tour guide at the Angostura, at the House of Angostura and their museum.
Hi, good morning, or good afternoon, I should say. It's almost 1. Unlike my other presenters, I do not possess a MBA or anything of the sort. I'm not likely to go on to do any scholarships. I am just a simple body who actually started off learning from parents who were basically very hardworking people. I've just passed my 58th year. I'm almost 59. And I grew up in a very small village on the hills of Maraval called Paramin, where we were all into farming. We basically were not people who knew much about going forth of heading into getting a degree or a master's. As you started to aim for getting out of poverty. And that was our main objective in life. We had food. We were not bedridden poor, but we had to fight for whatever we had and work hard for it. We were very resilient people. We grew up learning that if you want to accomplish something, you start off and you aim to get better every day. When I started my schooling after secondary school, I basically got a job very quickly. And at age 17, I was into the medical industry, working as a receptionist. You are comfortable, you're young, and as Deborah said before, you wanted money to lime. So why not just do something so that you will get by? And as time went on, I moved my way up, learning different aspects of the job. And until I finally became the company secretary, I worked in that company for 38 years. Not that I did not want to leave. Of course, I wanted to leave at some point in time. But then children came, marriage, house, loans, and then you're comfortable, you're in your comfort zone. So why should you leave? So you make do with what you have, thinking of the other ways. Sometimes you go and you dwell and you say, maybe I should do something else. Should I leave? Should I pursue my goal, what I wanted to become as a young adult? But every time you look at the monthly salary that you collect, you're comfortable. So in doing that, as time went on, the company decided to downsize. And then reality started to really hit home. And then they said, if I'm sent home without a job, what do I do next? And family comes in, my husband, my children. I had serious discussions. My husband, who was like, he had a small career, he was doing his own business. He said, whatever you decide to do, I'm here to support you. And with that, being the company secretary, listening to the talks about downsize and how do we choose and who should we send home, I said, you know what, let me take the pinch and let me go home. Maybe I need to do something else because I've always given it thoughts and I had a love for medicine. I enjoyed my job. I did not have to say, here what I'm going to work and I hated going to work. I enjoyed what I was doing. But then there was always that you know, little thing at the back of your head, as the last presenter said, as we're telling you, are you giving your full potential? Shouldn't you try something else? Should you move? And then I said, okay, you know what? I'm going to retire. And I did. And with my husband's small business, I said to him, you know what? I'm going to go into some hydroponics. Let me see if I could find a niche somewhere. Because being in Marval and affiliated to Paramin, it's all about seasoning. You heard about seasoning, you know about seasoning, you know what to do with seasoning, you know how to plant, you know how to reap. And so I said, okay, let me try the hydroponics. Maybe I'll help my husband business, which I did. And it was moving well. Nothing is wrong with it. I'm quite comfortable doing it, but it would mean serious expansion. And I said, you know what? I need to do something else, something to give me that drive. And then after much discussions with my brother, who is actually a tour guide for more than 20 years plus, he said, why are you fussing about all of this? You like to talk a lot. Why don't you just go into tour guiding? I said, boy, I don't know. I could do this, you know. He said, listen, if I could do it, you can. So started doing my investigation. Now I'm retired. I was always into the whole career industry. I hated the idea of getting people doing things to me. So let me see what else I can do. And with that, I started investigating, and there online, COSTAATT had all about 101 tour guiding with Miss McConney. I said, okay, let me see. Maybe I might be into it and I might just enjoy doing it, without realizing it had quite a lot of history involved, right? So you go back to school. But if you have that drive, you don't feel like stopping. You want to pursue, you want to get to the finishing point. And by 2023, I graduated as a certified tour guide. I went on, I did my first aid course, I graduated doing a first aid course, and I said, okay, right, let's see what I could do with tour guiding. And while doing that, I realized, listen, I could open my own company in tour guiding. I started presenting tours in Paramin, and with the support of family, you know, everybody in my family, when I do a tour, in particularly if I do a tour in Paramin, I get that support no matter what. I actually get, my sisters are they're all very gifted with their hands. Everybody in the family has that. And one thing I know, if I can call on them, I can get food done, no fuss. And then I started and I said, okay, this could work. My daughter said, no problem, I will come with you. My son, my husband, everybody. And it worked. It just means going the extra mile, pushing yourself to that point, right? And you may feel, is this going to be sufficient? But day after day, you realize you have that joy, that willingness. You pick up that newspaper, you read the history, you read something else that is happening. You get yourself in tune with what you need to do, which is knowledge, right? Maybe we were just supposed to be, some of us don't need to hit the books 24, and some of us might just be needing a little guidance to push to get that extra skill. And it comes naturally now. So I went on, I opened my own tour guiding company called A Taste of Paramin. And I do my tours, my seasonal tours. I always get good feedbacks. I haven't had any bad reviews. And then I decided, here, what I'm going to see how I can work with the tourists coming in on the cruise ship. I went to TNT sightseeing tours, and I decided to start doing tours with them. That worked out well. While doing that tour, Angostura decided they needed a further tour guide. So when they approached me, I was like, I'll see, and maybe, and you know, you have that doubt. And then the senior tour guide started training me. And he said, Michelle, you have all that it is needed to be a good tour guide. You don't need to be fearful, just be yourself and make your guests as comfortable as possible with giving them what they need, which is knowledge or information on the company and what the tour is all about. So I have been in Angostura and I'm comfortable in Angostura. It feels like home. And knowing now, even though I went from every day doing tours throughout Trinidad, which I still keep up with because I try to keep up with the National Trust tours. I do tours with the school children. I go down Nelson Island ever so often and doing the Savannah tours, doing the Magnificent Seven. You have tours throughout Waters Bay. It's not that Trinidad did not have something else to do, but it's just that that opportunity, you needed to give yourself that extra push, and something was just there, but it's just that maybe it was not being fed because of fear. We get into that comfort zone and we have that fear in dwelling inside, and we just don't know how to go forward. With COSTAATT, I've learned how to move on, and they have taught us so many different parts because the course is not just about tour guiding. We learn all about marketing. We learn how to move forward with ourselves. We learn how to transition into the career, and I'm grateful for that. I've always looked at, here, what should I do something else? I keep doing these little webinars that they have different people gathering much more information. I've started doing Friends with Alliance Francais because sometimes you have the guests and you have that language barrier, especially with the tourists. And I'm also already started thinking about starting Spanish. So it is moving forward, but making small steps and telling yourself that yes, you may slide, yes, you may fall. You have someone there to help you pick you up on the way, but just go gingerly. And as the last presenter said, take each step of that ladder one prong at a time. You will get there. You may not get there like everybody else. Some may win the race and some may not, but find that niche that is best suited for you. And just as what we say as we go about our everyday, opportunities are there, but it has to be created. We cannot just expect that silver platter with that gold spoon rest there waiting on you to receive it. So maybe with family and friends and the proper guidance, your transition should not be as difficult as some may seem, right? Not everybody will be out there telling you that this is the best move for you. You may not be a millionaire immediately, but who knows? You may be sitting on a gold mine and you just haven't found it yet. As the cupcake industry, as she suggested, she didn't realize that it was there until that she has gotten it and she has started and she's succeeded. And kudos to all of those past presenters. I don't think I'm that brave, but maybe in time I may get there, right? So, Fiola, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Michelle. So thank you to Arkkim, Deborah, and Michelle. I have to say each of these stories were very, very different, but each of them very inspirational in their own way. So if I can ask the presenters to put on your cameras, we do have some questions in the chat, but before we jump into those questions in the chat, let's kick off with one question. Each of your career shifts are quite different from your original paths. What unexpected skills from your previous roles helped you thrive in your new career?
I can take that one.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, okay. So, again, Deborah hit the nail right on the head. You see that ability to make those human connections and the ability to, make somebody feel comfortable, a stranger you never met. And I think that's probably a skill that both the presenters have because Michelle's also doing the tour guiding. And it's so important to be able to just synergize with someone. And that was a very important skill as an optician because you're dealing with the eyes, you're dealing with somebody who has an issue, a medical problem, and you are fixing it, you're helping them. And just having that ability to engage people at whatever level, because, you know, one day you'll be dealing with the Prime Minister. The next day you'll be dealing with, you know, Ms. Mavis from down the road. And you have to be able to engage everyone on that level. And coming across on the other side now, I find myself having to deal with people in so many different spheres of life. And it's almost natural. You know, some people are like, you know, people have asked me if I've been working in an institution for years, and I have not, you know, and it's because of that ability to just, you know, create rapport. So that's one skill that I think really gave me an edge in my current position.
Okay, great. And Deborah, maybe you could give us some examples of some skills from your previous roles that would have helped you thrive in your new career as a master baker.
Well, definitely. I think more than the baking, which is the artistic part of it, which is just, I guess it really comes down to talent and practice in that aspect. But I think in terms of making it a successful business, my marketing and sales background, the things that I would have learned from those people, having friends who've started their own businesses, so having connections and networks in terms of guidance, in terms of how to do it. And even as I went along, I met other people who were doing cakes longer than me, because I would have been doing the cupcakes and I probably would have met the person who's putting together the event or the person who did the main cake. And I made connections with those people. And so I have conversations with those people. So it's a support network as well as my sales and marketing background, which I came in with. And then the need to learn. I had that thing that I always wanted to know, you know, like if you watch a movie and everyone is watching the movie, I'm that person who looks at, oh, where does this actor come from? What's the background of this movie? Was this movie a book before? How is the book different? You know, it could be annoying as a friend, but you know, that's just part of my personality. And so embracing that really helped propelled me in the industry I'm in now.
Okay, great. So Michelle, I know in your presentation, you talked a little bit about some of the doubts and insecurities that you would have had. How did you overcome these doubts and insecurities when stepping into something so very entirely new?
Sorry about that. Yes. So basically, I think the support is what is needed most of the time, even though it's not as prevalent in. I had my family support. My husband was there, my children, my brother, and everyone was willing and helpful in every way, right? But that insecurity of making that big change is like you're saying, should I go? Should I leave? Should I? And that doubt sets in. But if you leave that doubt set in, you realize that now you're letting something actually take over completely, and then you get to the point of you just settle for less. You settle for where you are. I'm not going to make the change because you know what? Now is not a good time. Now the bills are there. Shouldn't the children are there. They need education. They need lessons, and all the bills are no matter what you do, the bills are always going to be there. So it is actually making yourself feel that here, what, let me do something and let me see if I can go forward with it. Yes, it might have some issues along the way, but if it is you don't make a step, you would never know. So in my case, that's what I did. I just decided, here, what, let me make that first step and see what happens behind those closed doors. And that's what happened. It was just okay. I'm not saying it will be for everybody, but yes, you may not be at the same point, but you will eventually get to the point where you feel comfortable. You feel comfortable to do something different.
Okay, great. And I can see the other presenters also nodding. There is a question coming in on the chat, and the question is, what advice would you give to someone who studied a degree in a specific field but worked in another due to limited opportunities, and now wants to switch and actually get into the field that they have the degree in, now that it is recognized, but a bit hesitant due to the lack of experience, which will lead to a huge salary reduction? Maybe Arkkim, you could take that one. Someone who studied in a degree for a specific field, but ended up working in another field altogether due to limited operations limited opportunities in the field in which they had originally qualified in, but they would really like to get into that original field, but they're hesitant due to lack of experience and the fact that it will lead to a huge salary reduction.
Well, I can't say that that's not a difficult situation. You know, it's well, not difficult, but it's you know, it's a little uncertain, you know, and that's one of the biggest things when you study, when you know, you decide to make a change, you know, the uncertainty behind it. I think well, to the person who asked the question, when you sit down and you spend that time with yourself, you want to be able to make a decision that doesn't give you like a regret, you know, and you have to ask yourself, okay, I did my degree in chemistry and I did not get a job in chemistry. I applied for internships, I applied for everything, and there was nothing. There was no opportunities. But you know, it was hard, it was difficult. And then I got through as a bank manager or a bank executive because for some reason chemists do good in the banking industry, and you make a lot of money. But now you see that there's an opportunity to go back into that field. Maybe it's because of the stress of the industry that you're in. Maybe it's because you know, you know that is the person that you really want to be. And this is why I say you have to really take that time and ask yourself those questions, because I know people who've worked in industries that they've made a lot of money, but they've suffered for it. They've suffered not for making the money, but just suffered for staying. And the only reason they stayed was because of that salary, because of that the purse, you know. But in some cases, I know people who have downsized their jobs. I know somebody in particular, again, she was from a similar industry, and she left and she started working HR. And I mean, bank executive, HR, you know, and the passion and the way that she lives her life now is so different because she is into talent recruitment, she's into mentorship, she's into training. She has more time to focus on her own goals. She has a side business now where she's doing entrepreneurship. She does merchandising and, you know, different stuff, selling things, and she does inspirational talks, and she has so much more time. She has time to spend with her family, with her son, you know. So at the end of the day, what do you really want for yourself? I mean, yes, we all want to have a better salary, but the salary isn't the only thing that's going to make you happy. And when you spend that time with yourself, I believe you will find the answer, you know, but you really just have to be truthful with yourself.
Okay, great. So there's another question in the chat, and Deborah, I'll ask you to take this question, and it is simply because you talked about volunteering within your within your presentation. And the question is, what can I do if I am not getting opportunities to volunteer within this new field, despite actively searching and reaching out? I have also started researching and seeking out information and in the process of starting courses as well, but I feel disheartened at times or even unsure about this change.
Yeah, so it's tough and it is disheartening when that happens. But I'm just going to talk about my experience because I don't know what the field was. The person did not specify which field it was that they wanted to get into so that the information could be tailored. But what I've found is that once you start doing courses, because she, I assume, said that she's going to start courses because the name is an unusual name, so I'm not sure, but I'm assuming. Yeah, she said she's starting courses. When you start courses, you're going to start a network and you're going to meet people who are in that. In fact, when I did my event management course, some of the people who were my tutors are people like Derek Lewis, who leads a large mass band, and he does big events. Eventology is one of his businesses. There's so many others that Sandra Bashir, who's done how many different courses for government agencies. She's really amazing at these things. You know, so when it doesn't have to be a formal space that you volunteer in. You can volunteer in small spaces. If you do courses, when they have opportunities to do something, speak to who your lecturer is and see if there's something that you can learn. find out about internships. Are there internships? Are there OJT opportunities? Because sometimes companies are always looking for support during hectic periods. And you might go in as a receptionist, no, but it is to assist the receptionist. But what you will be in is inside of the organization doing what you love to do. And there will be people there from the different departments, and you can try to make a connection with them, understand what they do, and just be part of it. Be part of it. It will come. It will come as you go along on your journey. It's not going to come as fast as you want it to come, but you have to stick to it. It's the question when I asked, even when it gets tough, do you want to do it? And this is the tough part. But what you will find once you stick to it and your passion and you're willing to take, as Arkkim was saying before, that loss, that because you might be at a certain level in your job, but you have to go in somewhere else and do something else you didn't want. But what you are doing is building connections in the industry, and eventually it will flow. That's the best I can give you, unless I know specifically what it is you want to do. Okay, I'm seeing here, she said it's branding. So branding is one of the easier things that you can get into now that it's online. I don't know what your experience is, but you can even start by merchandising, because merchandising is part of branding. It's on-shelf branding, and it's part of the branding and sales team. They're responsible for their merchandisers, and so they start marketing on shelf. Once you show that, people will give you other opportunities. Talk to whoever the merchandising manager is, who the trade marketing manager is. Brand people will come on board, and so you will learn from them. And it might not be with that company, but what you can do is your next job, you now have the experience of marketing and branding on site, which is the easiest part to get into.
Okay, great. Thank you. I feel that that was a very thorough answer, Deborah. So I do know that we are over 1 p.m. There is one more question that I will ask, and I will kick it to Michelle first. But then it's a question that I'd like each of the presenters to answer as well. And it is, if there is someone in the webinar listening who is sitting on the fence, right, about switching careers, what is one piece of advice you wish someone had told you before you made the leap?
Okay, in my case, I would say make that decision sooner than later, because I had been pondering quite a while, and over a number of years, and I kept saying, I'm not doing what I wanted to do in life. And I always wanted to do something with nursing, something in the medical field. And when the time came for me to go on, I didn't do it, because so then you pass the age of getting into schools. So when you decide you want to do that transition and you're ready to, you have given it all the thoughts, put all your bottles in the correct row, as they should say, don't wait on that opportunity. Create it and make that jump as early as possible. Don't wait until the time has passed and you cannot go to school or you cannot get into some courses that you want to do or so forth. Do it sooner than later.
Great. And maybe Arkkim, if you would want to jump in, your one piece of advice you wish someone had told you before you made the leap. You're muted.
So it's funny, the one piece of advice, Michelle was speaking, and what just came to me was, what are you waiting for? What are you waiting for? And it's very direct, and it's very, you think like, what do you mean what I'm waiting for? I don't want to take the risk. I don't want to, next thing I fail. Okay. There are times where if you don't make a decision, you don't go forward, you don't get any progress. But time is gonna pass. And exactly what Michelle said, time is gonna pass. And that's something that I realized myself, because I could have made that decision. Somebody asked me, they said, now that you made a transition and things are, different, how do you feel? And I said, I can't believe I took so long, because I thought that on the other side of the jump or the leap, it'll be detrimental, it'll be painful, it'll be, a lot of suffering. And it wasn't like that, and there's a saying, the only thing constant in life is change. But an American psychologist said that the fear of change is always constant. So in other words, you'll always be afraid. So sometimes you have to do it afraid, and yeah. But whether you do it today or 10 years from now, time is going to pass. And the longer you take to do it, you're going to have regrets, Okay.
Really good. I feel the urgency to do something. I'm not sure what, but something. All right, Deborah.
So building on my colleague's sentiment, I think that what I would say to everyone, and probably sometimes you're not ready to receive the message, life is a short journey. I started off when I was a teenager. I blinked. My daughter, who propelled me into having to get a serious job, just got married about a month ago. And I blinked, and there she is at 26, starting her new journey in life. She, extremely intelligent young lady, has embraced completely her heart's desire. She's uninhibited. She has a clothing line. Her husband is into music, and it's not the structured frame that we came from. Because I guess what I told my children is what someone should have told me a while ago, which is life is a short journey. Do what you love. Doesn't matter at which point you make that change, or when it is. Forget about yesterday. Yesterday is yesterday. Today is today, and then there's tomorrow. And you can't go back and change the past. But what you can do is embrace it, take the lessons from it, and move forward in the direction that you want to. It's not always easy, but in the end, you need to ask yourself the question, the few short years you have on this earth, what would you like to be doing with it? Do that thing.
Fantastic. I really appreciate the sentiments that all of you all would have put forward. Thank you very much for sharing your stories, sharing your time, sharing your insights. I'd also like to thank everyone who attended today's webinar. And before you leave, I would just like to let you all know about upcoming activities that we do have. If I could figure out my screen. All right. So there are, right now, what we do have is our career transition secrets. But coming up on May 23rd, we do have Resume Revolution. And this is the second one of our alumni webinar series. And it is featuring Chantal Graves-Cowan, Manager of Talent Acquisition at Caribbean Airlines. So check out our social media pages and make sure to register for that particular webinar on May 23rd at 12 noon. And on May 28th, we have another COSTAATT event, which is part of the Innovation Cafe series, which takes place on the last Wednesday of every month. And this time we are dealing with the topic of creative entrepreneurship. So please check out our social media pages again for the links in order to register for these events. All right. And I'd like to thank each and every one of you, those who were able to jump in and ask some questions. And this has been a recorded event. We will be editing it and we will be sharing it with each and every one of you once it is uploaded to our YouTube channel. So thank you very much. And I wish everyone a great Friday afternoon.